Hey, love tribers, peace. Today, I'm real excited to share a recipe for a raw vegan cheesecake. And this is a cheesecake recipe that I've just been sort of tweaking and playing with for about 6 or 7 years. It's always been good, but it does seem to be getting better and better. So I'm real excited about sharing it with you. I've made a strawberry chocolate swirl version before, and I've done a blueberry version before. It seems like something else, but since Thanksgiving is right around the corner, I thought it would be fun to try out a pumpkin version. So that's what today's recipe is for. It's for pumpkin, a raw vegan pumpkin cheesecake. And so I've been kind of figuring out about the amounts of ingredients that I'm going to need, but I thought I would just do a video of me making it, and that way if I need to tweak any of the measurements, I can just do it right here during the video, because that's one of the things I love, one of the many things that I love about the raw vegan food preparation is that you can't go wrong. You can always taste it and fix it as you go. So you're really just looking for your flavor and your texture. So we're just going to get started now with the crust. And I'm making the crust in my Cuisinart. And I've already got about 5 Majol dates in the Cuisinart, and I've already kind of run it, so they're already kind of starting to get chopped. And it came up to about a half of a cup of Majol dates if you're wanting to measure it, but basically about 5 Majol dates. Make sure to remove the seeds, and then sometimes they have a little hat, so of course you want to get those out of there. And then I'm going to add 2 cups of Brazil nuts. And now have not soaked these, because I have read that Brazil nuts are one of the nuts that you do not have to soak. So I'm just going to add all of my Brazil nuts, and then I'm going to put in a teaspoon of ground vanilla bean. So this is just vanilla bean that's been ground. It's dry. You could try extract too. So if you don't have the vanilla bean, the ground vanilla bean, you could go with the extract. And then I'm going to do a teaspoon of pink Himalaya salt. And you can always I might do a little less actually, so not quite a full teaspoon of the Himalaya salt. And I'll be using this for the filling as well. And then I'm going to do a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And I'll be putting cinnamon in the filling as well. And then a teaspoon of nutmeg. So that's just basically a teaspoon of all of those ingredients. And I'm going to use the nutmeg in the filling too. So there we go. There's that. And I'm just going to pulse it. And you need to pulse it enough so I can already tell that I probably am going to need a couple of more of the Majol dates. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple of those. And the reason I know is you want it to just start to stick together. So again, I'm going to remove the pits and just drop them in as I pulse it. So then that makes the total so far of 7. So we've got 7 Majol dates. Yeah. And so now that it's starting to kind of stick, I can see that I've got a really good crust going there with that. So that's going to be 7 major dates and then the Brazil nuts along with the spices. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to press that into a pan. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And I am using a cheesecake pan. So I'm using the spring pan that you would normally make a cheesecake in. However, you could put this in the very dish that you plan to serve your pumpkin cheesecake out of. But what I like to do, and you don't have to do this, but I find it helpful. I've already taken a little bit of coconut oil and just kind of greased my pan with it. And then I've sprinkled just a little bit, as you can see, not much at all, just a little bit of shredded coconut. And that's kind of like greasing and flouring the pan. So it just makes it easier to get your pie out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Brazil nuts and the medjool dates, and I'm going to just press this into the pan so it becomes the crust, or the pie shell, or cheesecake rather. And so you're going to really kind of pat it in there nice and firm. So if you feel like your crust is not moist enough, just know you want it kind of sticky. Add some more dates, or add a little bit of agave nectar, or something like that, something kind of sweet and sticky to help hold it together. And just keep in mind, you want it about the consistency of a just nice sticky crust. And by the way, the crust is super delicious. I usually end up eating that as I go, but I like a nice thick crust. So I use 2 cups of nuts, and then the dates, and that makes a nice crust, a nice thick crust. You can always make a thinner crust by using less. So there's that. Just make sure I get all the ingredients there in there. And there it is. It's just all patted into the pan. And if you want to, you can put that in the freezer while you are making the filling. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pop this in the freezer. And actually, let me cover it. Okay, and then next up is the filling. So the filling is going to be all made in my blender mug. So I'm going to start by adding my wet ingredients first. So let's see, what all do I have here? I've got a cup of maple syrup, so I'm going to just pour that in. Get that in there. And then I've got about 3/4 of a cup of the coconut oil. And I'm not going to add all of it just yet. I'm going to start by adding most of it. So I'm going to do about 1/2 cup to start with. I'll probably end up using all of that. And then I've got about 1/2 cup of lemon juice. So I'm not sure how much of that lemon juice I want either. So I'm going to start by doing about 1/4 cup of the lemon juice. And then I've got about 1/2 cup of almond milk. And this is my homemade almond milk. And So it's already got a little bit of date and vanilla in it, but it's not enough to really affect the recipe. But if you're using store-bought almond milk, you may want to look for a vanilla, but it really is probably not going to be um, that important. And again, I'm just going to start with about 1/4 of a cup of the almond milk. All right, and then, let's see. I'm going to use a tablespoon of some vanilla extract. And then I'm going to do 1/2 of a teaspoon of my pink Himalaya salt. I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of ground ginger. Yum. I'm going to do 1/8 of a teaspoon of the ground cloves. So just a little bit of clove. 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. And with these pumpkin pie spices, you could always eliminate a spice that you don't like or more of one that you love. You can always flavor your pumpkin cheesecake the way that you like. And then I'm going to do 1/2 of a teaspoon of the ground nutmeg. All right. And then I'm just going to add not even 1/8, maybe almost 1/8 of a teaspoon of turmeric. So just a pinch. And I'm mostly putting that in for a little bit of color. So something I didn't mention in the beginning was that I'm not actually using pumpkin for this recipe. So I don't think anyone is going to know the difference, just those of us that are making it. I'm actually using the butternut squash, and it was just sort of a last-minute decision. I was thinking about this recipe and trying to figure out what measurements I needed for everything since I was about to do pumpkin. I had not done pumpkin before. And I've been playing around with the butternut squash lately and having lots of luck with it. And it just felt right to use the butternut squash. So I'm going to try butternut squash. And I have a cup of grated butternut squash. So again, I've peeled the skin and I removed the seeds. And I just grated it through the Cuisinart. So I've got a cup of that. I'm just going to add that. And then I think this is my last ingredient for now. I have 2 cups of cashews. Now, I've already soaked these. I soaked these for about 12 hours in reverse osmosis water. And then, of course, I poured that water out and I rinsed them off very, very good. So they have been sprouted and they're ready to go. And they're still moist. I just kept them in the refrigerator overnight. All right, and then we're ready to start blending it. So when you start to blend the filling, you really want a good, thick, creamy mixture. So we're going for, nice, creamy, thick consistency. looking a little thin, but I'm going to just take a spoon and just kind of see how it feels. Okay, the taste is great. What I think I need is just a few more cashews. So we had 2 cups of cashews. So let's see. We're going to go ahead. So my regular cheesecake recipe, I usually use about 3 cups of the soaked cashews. And I only started with about 2 cups because I wasn't sure since I was adding the pumpkin. So I've got another cup of cashews, and I think I'm just going to start by adding about half of this amount. And then I may end up needing all 3 cups. And we'll just see. It's tasting really good though. Apologize for making you endure the sound of the blender. I try to avoid that, but so now I'm going to just give it another little taste. It's still feeling like it might need a little thickening. The taste is spot on. It's so good. So I think I'm going to make the call. I'm going to make the call to add the rest of these cashews. So that's going to turn this recipe into 3 cups of the soaked cashews. And so far, that's the only thing I'm changing. I'm just going to remove this little cashew because it still had a little shell on it, I could see. That should do it. Now that I've added the cashews, I really need to take another taste. And really I do, because as I've added the cashews, there's always the chance that, yeah, and this is just a better consistency. Oh, and it's so good. So this is going to taste amazing. That's the other thing about the raw vegan cheesecake. What you're tasting here, this is basically the flavor that you're going to get. So this is just ready to go. So I'm going to grab my crust. And so now I've got my crust, and it's just been in the freezer just while I mix that up. And I'm just going to pour the pumpkin pie cheesecake filling into my crust. And that is pretty much it. You can smooth it out to how you like with your spatula. And then this just needs to be stored in the freezer. And so I just cover my cheesecake spring pan with a plate so that it's sealed very nicely. And then it needs to be in the freezer probably at least 4 hours or so. You need to get it really firm. And that's another great thing about this recipe. So you can make this ahead of time and it'll keep in the freezer for, a week or so. But you can definitely make it a few days ahead of time. And then before you serve it, you just want to take it out of the freezer. You can put it in the fridge for, the first hour or so, and then maybe bring it out and just let it come gently to, room temperature right before you serve it. You can serve it while it's still cold. I mean, it's going to stay cold. You don't want it to get hot, but, you don't ever heat this. But you do want it to not be frozen necessarily, although they're great frozen, but it's not meant to be served frozen. So that's pretty much it for the pumpkin pie cheesecake. I hope you will give it a try and let me know what you think. Hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Stay grateful, stay joyful, stay playful. Keep raising your vibe. Peace.